Hey everybody, today we'll be diving into part 2 of the soil forming factors series. So today we'll be talking about climate, so let's get started. So this next little object is representing the next soil forming factor, which is climate. Now I can't exactly bring an object, so I can't exactly grab climate and bring it in here, but right now the climate in this room is pretty hot because it's pretty hot here. I think it's 95 degrees, and when you don't have AC, it causes it to be hot. But besides that, climate is probably the biggest thing that affects soils. It affects it more than the other three that I'm going to talk about, just because of its grand scope that it causes how soils will form. Climate is not has like a physical effect, so it will like cause soils to break up into smaller pieces. Not soils, but rocks. Causes rocks to break up to smallest pieces, so they can have a physical effect from like freezing and thawing, just that physical breaking of rocks into smaller materials. But climate has a greater effect because of its ability to chemically weather parent material. So the first thing we need to think about when it comes to climate is rain. Precipitation. Precipitation has a great effect on soils. So if you're in an area that gets lots of rain, that will cause your soils to weather faster, because rain naturally has a slight acidic to it. Water is not exactly neutral. It's not exactly 7. It's usually below 7. And because rain is naturally acidic, that causes chemical weathering on parent material. It causes it to break down and to chemically change, and eventually forms that soil that we see. And so if it's get lots of high intensity rain, get it frequently, and it's for a long duration, you'll see soils that are much more greatly developed. So if we think about like a desert, soil formation is very minimum. It's very slow and not much is happening. The soil is not very deep. It's could be only a couple of inches deep if you're not getting much rain. But if you think of a place that has high rainfall and has a lot of rainfall, you usually get deep soils, because that parent material has time to weather and has time to break down and to form that soil. Another thing that needs to be considered is percolation, the movement of water down in soils. So movement of water often causes clay to move down, because clay forms in the top of the soil, and then water moves it down into the bottom of the soil. So that is one example of effect that water has on soils and how it causes it to develop. So clays form in the top of the soil, near the surface, and then rainwater moves it down into like the subsoil. So with high rainfall, usually you have more acidic soils. So if your rainfall is really high, then you'll have acidic soils because all your calcium has been leached out, and everything that causes soils to be basic or alkaline has been leached out, and all you're left is with hydrogen and aluminum, which are acidic cations that cause soils to be acidic. And so if you're in a desert with low rainfall, you'll have more alkaline or basic soils, because that calcium and other cations that make your soil basic are still there. So really I mentioned that freeze-thaw action, so that deals with temperature. So temperature, just merely the sun shining on rocks, causes them to warm up and to expand. And as they expand, they break apart, they slowly get smaller and smaller. Water gets in crack, it freezes, it expands, and then it breaks up the rock, and then it thaws, so it melts, and then it expands again, it causes cracks, and just that simple thawing, freezing, hot sun, and all that causes just a physical weathering. And then wind can also have effect. Wind picks up particles, it blows across rocks, and those fine particles act as sandpaper, breaks down that rock further. So that's climate. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for watching part 2 about climate. Next time we'll be talking about the other soil forming factors, so stay tuned.